I speak to you today with feelings of profound sorrow.
The decision landed like a door slamming shut inside the monarchy's most private machinery. William had not whispered, hinted, or delayed. He moved with the force of a future king who believed the line had finally been crossed. Camilla, once protected by rank and ritual, was suddenly blocked from royal travel after leaked staff orders exposed a private command structure that no one outside the palace was ever meant to see. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. William stood over the leaked notes with a stillness that made the room feel smaller. The prince read every line twice, then set one hand flat against the page. Royal travel, the system deciding who joins official visits, which cars leave first, and how security protects senior figures, had suddenly become the battlefield. This was not a seating mistake. This was control. Camilla received the news behind a closed door, and the queen consort did not ask whether it was true. She asked who had seen it. That question changed the temperature around her. She understood the shame before anyone explained the policy. The ban meant she would not join royal visits, overseas appearances, transport, or briefings until William's office reviewed every private instruction tied to her staff. The leaked orders cut deeper because they named movements, timing, and access. Staff had been told to prioritize Camilla's route over other senior royals during official journeys. One note carried even more damage. Aides connected to Catherine's team had been redirected during a previous royal journey, leaving the princess's office exposed to confusion, while the queen consort's schedule remained protected. Catherine had said nothing then. Her silence felt louder than accusation. William did not explode. That made the decision colder. The future king asked for the travel list, removed Camilla's name, and told the secretary that no exception would be made without his written approval. A formal ban, in palace language, meant an order recorded through official channels, so no aide could pretend it was a misunderstanding. This was authority taking shape. Camilla sat alone after the message was delivered, and the queen consort lowered her eyes. The humiliation was not only that William had acted, it was that staff had leaked the orders to him, choosing the prince as the person powerful enough to stop her. Behind that choice was a hand hidden, a motive unspoken, and a question the palace could no longer avoid. Who had betrayed her first? But before the palace could understand the leak, it had to face the people caught at the heart of the storm. This was not just a travel dispute. It was a collision between power, loyalty, and the silent wounds that had been buried beneath royal smiles for years. William stood at the center of it, with the cold responsibility of inheritance pressing against him. Camilla stood opposite him, wounded by the accusation, but cornered by the papers. Charles stood between them, forced to watch the monarchy divide itself in real time. William knew this decision would not stay inside one office. The prince was not acting only as a son angry over leaked orders. He was acting as the future king, the person expected to protect the next shape of the crown. The crown means the monarchy as an institution, not just the person wearing it. And that made the ban far heavier than a family argument. It touched duty. It touched trust. It touched the line of command. Camilla felt the damage immediately. The queen consort had built her position on dignity, access, and the quiet belief that certain doors would always open for her. Royal travel gave her visibility, influence, and presence beside Charles during moments that mattered. Being removed from it did not only take away a journey, it took away power in front of the very staff who once followed her instructions without question. Charles read the decision alone, and the king lowered his glasses, as if the words had struck harder than expected. He did not speak at first. He only sat back, holding the paper in one hand, realizing that William had crossed from patience into authority. Charles understood that his son had not acted out of temper. The monarch understood something worse. The prince had acted because the evidence gave him no room to look away. Camilla struggled with the wound beneath the order. She could have accepted a private warning, She could have survived a quiet correction. But William had reduced her authority inside the family's working structure, and the queen consort knew everyone would feel that change. Aides would pause before obeying her. Secretaries would ask for confirmation. Doors would open more slowly. That was the punishment that hurt most. The leaked orders carried another shadow. They suggested certain aides believed Camilla had been running a private chain of instruction away from William's office. A private chain of instruction simply means staff taking commands outside the normal approval route and inside palace life. That is dangerous, because one hidden order can disrupt security, timing, and rank. Catherine's name sat quietly in the background of the file, not as an accuser, but as someone whose schedule had been affected. William saw that detail and became colder. The prince did not need Catherine to speak for the damage to become clear. Her office had been touched by the disputed orders, and that turned the travel ban into something personal, painful, and impossible to soften. Camilla had lost a privilege. Charles had lost his silence. And buried behind the ban was one earlier moment that turned suspicion into certainty. Every royal crisis has a moment that looks harmless at first, until history turns back and points directly at it. For this family, that moment came during the St. George's Chapel travel departure ceremony, when a small seating change, a delayed car movement, and one whispered order exposed something far larger. William saw it then. Catherine felt it then. Camilla denied it then. But the staff remembered. Catherine waited with the patience expected of a princess, but something in her face began to change. St. George's Chapel, one of the royal family's most important ceremonial churches, was supposed to be a place of order, duty, and dignity. A departure ceremony simply means the planned moment when senior royals leave in a set order after an official event. That order matters, because rank, security, timing, and public respect are all tied to it. One wrong movement can look small to outsiders, but inside the palace, it can signal who is being protected and who is being pushed aside. William noticed the delay before anyone explained it. The prince watched Catherine's car remain still, while another movement was suddenly cleared ahead of schedule. His security lead, the officer assigned to stay close to him during official travel, had been shifted away from the normal route. That was not a harmless adjustment. It meant William's team was being pulled out of position, while the queen consort's side moved with unusual ease. Camilla spoke quietly to an aide, then turned away at the exact moment William looked across the corridor. The queen consort did not raise her voice. She did not create a scene. That was what made it worse. The order seemed soft, almost invisible, but the effect was sharp. Catherine stayed composed, yet the princess understood what had happened. Her schedule had been touched without her consent, and her silence became a shield around her dignity. Staff later called it a coordination error, and the household accepted that explanation because peace was easier than confrontation. A coordination error means a mistake in planning between aides, cars, security, or timing, and it gave everyone a way to move on without naming blame. Charles heard the explanation and allowed it to stand. The king did not press further. But William remembered Catherine waiting. The prince remembered the car. He remembered Camilla turning away. The leaked staff orders changed everything. Those papers connected directly back to the chapel incident, showing that the delayed car and shifted security lead had followed a private instruction, not a simple mistake. A junior aide had kept a copy of the altered movement sheet after seeing that the change had bypassed normal approval channels. That documented account became the source that later exposed the pattern, and William finally had proof of what he had felt that day. Catherine never needed to accuse anyone. Her restraint made the truth more painful. Camilla had denied control then, but the queen consort could no longer hide behind confusion now. William linked the chapel moment to the leaked orders, and the prince understood the conflict could no longer remain buried inside paperwork. The past had finally caught up with the present, and the next step could only be confrontation. The room was cleared before anyone understood what was about to happen. No aides, no secretaries, no softening language. William entered with the leaked orders in his hand, and the restrained fury of a man who had already made his decision. Camilla did not rise at first. Then she saw the papers. In that instant, the silence became sharper than any accusation spoken aloud. William placed the pages on the table and did not sit. The prince had requested the private meeting after confirming that the leaked orders matched the St. George's Chapel departure incident. A private meeting, in palace life, means a conversation without aides, note-takers, or official shields, and that made the moment dangerous. No one could soften his words. No one could rescue Camilla from the answer. Camilla gripped the arm of her chair before she spoke. The queen consort understood why William had come, but she refused to show fear first. She told him she had protected royal order, protected timing, protected the smooth face of the monarchy. William heard something else. He heard control. He heard interference. He heard Catherine waiting beside a delayed car, while another route was quietly cleared. Charles knew the meeting was happening, but the king did not enter the room. He stayed away, and that absence cut through the family like a second verdict. Charles had spent years trying to keep peace between his wife and his son, but this time peace had become impossible. The monarch allowed them to face each other alone, because any defense from him would look like denial, and any silence would look like surrender. William opened the file again and pointed to the matching instructions. The prince said the travel structure could not continue under private command. A travel structure means the planned chain of cars, aircraft, security, aides, rooms, and arrival order that keeps royal duties moving. It matters because one hidden change can embarrass one royal, expose another, and confuse the staff responsible for protecting them all. Camilla insisted she had never meant to weaken anyone. The queen consort said duty sometimes required fast decisions. But William did not soften. He revealed, through a documented account from the travel office, that more than one staff member had come forward. This was not one angry aide. This was not one careless leak. It was a quiet revolt from people who had started writing things down because they no longer trusted what they were being asked to do. Camilla went pale at that. The queen consort could fight William's anger, but she could not fight the paperwork. The household had begun documenting her private instructions, and that frightened her more than the ban. It meant her power had already started slipping before the prince ever walked in. William ended the confrontation without raising his voice. The prince took the next royal travel list, removed Camilla's name, and left the page on the table between them. No shouting, no apology, no rescue. Once that name was removed, the question changed from what Camilla had done to who truly held control. Power inside the monarchy rarely announces itself with thunder. Sometimes it appears as a signature at the bottom of a page, a removed name from a schedule, or a chair left empty on an aircraft manifest. William's decision did not come from anger alone. It came from access, authority, and the growing recognition that the future king could no longer allow private influence to override public duty. William understood the size of what he had done. The prince had not simply challenged Camilla in a private room. He had moved the center of control toward his own office, and everyone inside the household could feel it. Royal travel, the official system that organizes visits, cars, aircraft, security, and staff movement, matters because it shows who carries real power. Whoever controls travel controls access, timing, and public presence. Charles held the revised list and paused over Camilla's missing name. The king did not speak for several seconds. He knew what the removal meant. This was not a temporary embarrassment. It was a warning that the old habit of smoothing over private interference had reached its limit. Charles had protected peace for years, but William was now protecting structure. Those two instincts were no longer standing on the same side. William felt the personal cost, but the prince did not turn back. Acting against his father's wife carried emotional weight, and he knew it would wound Charles as much as Camilla. But the future king also knew that emotional avoidance had allowed the crisis to grow. If private orders could redirect aids, delay Catherine's team, and confuse security planning, then silence was no longer kindness. Silence had become risk. Camilla sensed the shift before anyone explained it. The queen consort had once moved through royal systems with the quiet confidence of someone whose requests were rarely questioned. Now every request would be checked. Every instruction would need approval. Every aide would wonder whether obeying her might place them against William. That was the real punishment. Not distance. Not absence. Doubt. A palace advisor confirmed the rule through a documented account prepared for senior staff. Travel access could be restricted when private instructions interfered with official security planning. Official security planning means the approved protection system that keeps royals, staff, and public events safe. It matters because a hidden change is not just rude or political. It can put people in the wrong place at the wrong time. Catherine's office quietly regained equal briefing access, and that detail revealed the deeper purpose of William's decision. The princess did not need a public victory. Her restored place inside the briefing chain was enough. It showed that the ban was not only punishment for Camilla, it corrected an imbalance that had been allowed to sit in the palace for too long. William signed the revised travel structure and left no space for confusion. The prince had chosen order over comfort, and Charles had not stopped him. Camilla's influence had been checked at the exact point where it once moved most freely. The palace machinery moved quickly, and Camilla felt the new reality before any statement was released. The first consequence was not a headline. It was an empty seat. Camilla saw it before anyone explained it to her. Her place removed from the travel briefing, her folder absent from the table, her aide standing awkwardly with nothing to hand over. For the first time since the crisis began, the punishment was no longer theoretical. It had become physical, visible, and impossible to ignore. Camilla entered expecting routine, and the queen consort found judgment instead. A royal travel briefing, the private meeting where routes, cars, aircraft, staff roles, and protection plans are agreed before an official visit, had always given her a place in the working rhythm of the monarchy. That place mattered because travel was not just movement. It was visibility. It was influence. It was proof that she still stood beside Charles in the public life of the crown. Camilla looked toward the table and saw only Charles's folder and William's schedule waiting there. The queen consort did not ask where her papers were. Her face answered first. The missing folder told her that the ban had moved from decision to reality. It told every aide in the room that William's order had teeth. It told every secretary that the old pattern was finished. A senior aide avoided her eyes, and that small gesture hurt more than a speech. The aide had once taken her instructions quickly, almost without question. Now he stood still, hands empty, trapped between old loyalty and new command. Camilla felt the humiliation spread through the room, because everyone understood what had changed. Nobody needed to say she had been removed. The empty seat had already said it. William's office had issued new instructions overnight. All travel approvals would now move through the prince's team before reaching final scheduling. Travel approvals simply mean permission for who travels, when they travel, and which staff or security members move with them. That change mattered because it took private pressure away from Camilla's side and placed authority back into a single controlled chain. Charles did not reverse it. The king knew the silence would wound his wife, but he also knew overturning William would make the leak look meaningless. He had reached the painful place where protecting Camilla meant weakening the structure his son was trying to repair. Charles stayed quiet, and the monarch's quietness became its own approval. Camilla learned the deeper punishment soon after. Her private travel secretary had been temporarily reassigned, a documented staffing note confirming that the ban reached beyond her name. The queen consort understood the message. Those who carried out her private orders would no longer move freely either. Her influence had been checked at the root. Camilla left the briefing changed. The queen consort had lost more than access. She had lost certainty. William had redrawn the room without raising his voice, and Charles had allowed the lines to remain. After the empty seat came the moment no protocol could manage two people alone, with no palace language left to hide behind. By then, the loudest part of the crisis had already passed. What remained was quieter and more dangerous. Truth without witnesses. William and Charles met privately, away from aides, away from schedules, away from the careful language that had kept the family from saying what it meant. A father sat across from his son, and the future of royal authority shifted in a silence neither of them could escape. William entered with no papers in his hand this time. The prince had already used documents, lists, and leaked orders to prove his case. Now he needed words. A private royal meeting, meaning a family discussion without advisors, secretaries, or official records guiding the conversation, mattered because nothing could be softened afterward. Charles would hear his son directly, and William would have to carry the emotional cost of every sentence. Charles looked older in that moment. The king was not facing a minister or a palace advisor. He was facing his son, the man who would inherit the pressure he had carried for years. Charles had to decide whether to defend Camilla's former access or accept that William's travel restriction was necessary. Either choice would hurt someone. Either choice would expose what silence had already done. William spoke carefully, but the prince did not step back. He told Charles that loyalty could not mean ignoring damage. The words landed hard because the king knew they were not only about Camilla. They were about years of avoidance, years of smoothing things over, years of choosing peace in the moment, while tension grew underneath. Charles looked down, and that small reaction said what pride would not allow him to say. Charles did not answer like a victorious monarch. He answered like a tired father. The king admitted, through a recorded private conversation later preserved in a confidential family account, that he had hoped the travel dispute could be contained. But William revealed something heavier. The prince said he had not acted because of one leak. He had acted because the leak confirmed a pattern he had already feared. William named the pattern plainly. Camilla's private instructions had not simply caused inconvenience. They had changed movement, pulled staff into confusion, and touched Catherine's schedule without proper approval. The princess was not in the room, but her silence was there between father and son. Charles understood that defending Camilla completely would mean dismissing Catherine's dignity and William's judgment at the same time. Charles finally made the choice. The king told William he would not overturn the ban. He did not celebrate it. He did not dress it up as victory. He accepted it with the sadness of a man who knew the family balance had changed. That acceptance made the restriction final inside the palace, before the public ever heard the full force of it. William left the meeting calmer, but not untouched. The prince had gained authority and lost innocence in the same breath. Charles had protected the crown by refusing to undo his son's decision, yet the king had also watched Camilla's influence shrink under his own roof. Father and son had reached a painful understanding, and when the palace doors opened, the nation did not receive a rumor, it received a symbol. By morning, the private punishment had become a national spectacle. The monarchy woke to headlines, broadcasts, and crowds reading between every official sentence. What had begun as leaked staff orders was now seen as something far larger. William drawing a public boundary around Camilla's influence. The palace could manage statements, but it could not control the image that captured the country's imagination. Camilla watched the morning broadcast in silence, and the queen consort did not reach for the remote. A presenter described the ban as the future king's first unmistakable line in the sand, and those words seemed to settle heavily around her. An operational review, the phrase used by the palace to mean an internal check of schedules, staff duties, security routes, and travel approval, sounded calm on paper. But the public heard something else. They heard punishment. William appeared later that day with a controlled face. and the prince gave nothing away. He knew every camera would search him for anger, regret, or victory. He offered none of it. That restraint mattered, because the monarchy survives on symbols as much as statements. If he looked cruel, the decision would seem personal. If he looked weak, the ban would seem temporary. So William stood firm, and the future king allowed silence to carry the message. Camilla understood the message too well. The queen consort had spent years building a place beside Charles, and royal travel had helped protect that place. Every journey, every arrival, every shared duty told the country that she belonged in the center of the crown. Now the story had changed. Her absence had become the headline. Her missing seat had become the evidence. A newspaper front page captured the feeling with brutal simplicity. Across the morning edition, an empty royal aircraft seat appeared beneath the words, "Camilla grounded." The image moved faster than any palace statement. It turned a staff leak into a national judgment, and it gave the public one clear picture of what had happened. William had not only blocked Camilla from travel, the prince had shown that her access could be taken away. Charles saw the headline and closed the paper slowly. The king knew the phrase would wound his wife, but he also knew the public had understood what the palace tried to soften. Buckingham Palace, the main working headquarters of the monarchy, became the focus because people believed the decision had changed power inside those walls. Outside the gates, a small crowd gathered, and one woman held a handwritten sign that read, "Protect the crown, not the secrets." William heard about the crowd before the day ended, and the prince did not celebrate. Public support could not erase private pain. Catherine stayed quiet, and the princess's silence kept the story from turning into open family war. Camilla remained unseen, and her absence said more than any reply could have said. The palace had called it procedure. The country called it trust. And by the time the sun fell on that first public day, everyone understood the ban was no longer about travel alone. It had become a verdict on who could be trusted near the machinery of the crown. Now all that remained was the final meaning of the decision, and who would be left changed by it. In the end, the travel ban was not remembered as a scheduling punishment. It became the moment William stopped waiting for the palace to correct itself. Camilla lost more than a seat on a royal journey. Charles lost the luxury of silence. Catherine regained ground without saying a word. And the monarchy learned that the future would no longer be managed by private orders hidden behind closed doors. William's ban marked a permanent shift, and the prince knew it. Royal authority, the power to make decisions on behalf of the monarchy, had moved away from quiet influence and toward visible accountability. That mattered because the crown could not survive if staff believed private commands were stronger than official order. It also mattered because every hidden instruction had created fear, confusion, and doubt inside the household. Camilla sat alone after the decision settled, and the queen consort touched the edge of an unused travel folder before closing it with quiet defeat. That folder had once meant movement, rank, and presence beside Charles. Now it meant absence. She understood the cost of overreach in a way no public statement could soften. The punishment was not loud. It was final. Charles accepted the outcome with sadness, and the king did not pretend the pain was small. He understood that protecting peace for too long had allowed deeper damage to grow beneath the surface. The monarch had wanted calm, but calm had become cover. He had wanted unity, but unity had started to depend on silence, and silence had failed everyone. Catherine remained dignified, and the princess never needed to turn the moment into triumph. Her position had been restored through action, not speeches. William remained firm, and the future king did not use victory like a weapon. His final act was not revenge. It was restoration, returning the travel structure, meaning the official system of cars, security, aids, and royal movement, back to approved channels, where no private pressure could bend it again. Camilla was left with the hardest truth. The leaked orders became less important than what they exposed. A hidden system of influence that staff no longer trusted. Once trust breaks inside a palace, rank cannot repair it by itself. A title can open doors, but it cannot force belief. The queen consort still had status, but the old freedom around her instructions was gone. William proved that the crown did not need to break in order to change. Charles remained wounded but accepting. Catherine stood steady without demanding applause. Camilla carried the consequence of the line she had crossed. The monarchy survived because it finally named the boundary, faced the pain, and chose discipline over denial. Authority moved toward the future king, and the palace understood that the old way of quietly protecting everyone was over. This was the moment the monarchy chose discipline over denial, and William proved that the future crown would not travel under anyone else's private command. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.